Hi everyone, this is Matt from DrawingTutorialsOnline.com, and this is going to be a tutorial based on compositional shapes along with the three-value study, but more about compositional shapes. Now, what is this that we're looking at right now? Well, Christine is a member of the site, and Christine, you guys probably know her. She's really active in the forums, and I've been coaching Christine once a week via Skype. And she is in the midst of working on thumbnail sketches for spreads for a children's picture book. And she's struggling with compositional shapes, and she asked me to help her with that. So I asked her if she could help me out and allow me to work on one of her sketches in a tutorial so I can help her and help you guys at the same time. So basically, this is a children's picture book that includes this creature. I don't want to give too much away about the book because this is a pretty big publishing company, and Christine allowed me to use this one spread. And I don't want to talk too much about the book and the publishing company, but let's just talk about this one image and try to analyze it a little bit. This is a creature, a pangolin, and it is climbing up this tree. Let me just get some color here to show you which sketch I'm even looking at. I'm looking at this sketch. This pangolin is climbing up the tree, and this pangolin has its little baby on its back. And basically what it's doing is it's climbing the tree to go eat ants, and the ants are on leaves, okay? So Christine is trying to play around with different points of views, from up, looking from below, looking from up above, and she is, if we can kind of just, hold on one moment. She is playing with different points of view. And you can see right over here, she's thinking about the compositional shape. Okay, here's the pangolin, and she's got some beautiful sketches. I know right now on the screencast they're probably really tiny, but when I work on the one for you, I'm going to up it a little bit. Here's another beautiful sketch down over here. So she's playing with the detail and all that. So again, she's working with the compositional shapes. Her sketches have been getting much, much better. However, she's still struggling a little bit. So let's just kind of help her out, and let me teach you guys a little bit more about the compositional shape. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to just up this sketch so you guys can actually see it. And this is the one that I'm working on. Now, this is primarily nighttime. I believe so. And so this is being lit by the moon. Okay, so basically what we have here is we have our pangolin climbing up this tree trunk, and we're looking at it somewhat from below, kind of not really, but that's the point. And the baby is on the pangolin's back. So the first thing we want to do here is we want to think about what is going to be our compositional shape for this scene, because right now it's more of like a line drawing. So for me, for this scene, I see the compositional shape. There's two ways that I see it. One way is the tree trunk and that kind of foliage down at the bottom. So let me carry through with the tree trunk coming in over here. So basically, it's the tree trunk and the ground would be one way to think about the compositional shape. Now, what is the compositional shape? Again, a compositional shape is a tool that you use to make your images pop more. It's that simple. And when things are very light and gray, light gray everywhere with not a lot of shape, your images tend to get a little more weak, and they don't pop as much. So our goal is to make our image pop, because we're going to be competing against other artists on sites like the iSpot, and our portfolios need to pop. If we're in publishing, we need our images to jump off the shelves. So the iSpot.com, I meant to say. So this could be, with this little foliage thing over here, this could be one way to think about the compositional shape. Now, we could also, I believe this section is leaves on that tree, okay? We could also do it with the leaves, and then our compositional shape would be a little different. So basically, I'd have a shape here, and then I'd pull down to my tree trunk, pull back up with that foliage, and some more. One moment. So I'm going to do a three-value study, compositional shape. So I have my tree trunk, which is what I'm working on right now, my leaves, that could be another version. I like the top one better, but I think we're going to go with this. So let me just kind of make it a little bit more solid for you. So this is a two-value compositional shape. Okay? Actually, I'm going to call this a three-value because I'm going to make my ground area, okay, my ground area and my tree trunk darker, and I'm going to keep my leaves lighter. I like that already. So when you do these, you can do as many of these as you like. The more you do, the more ideas you get, and they're really tiny. So, you know, it's great. You can just kind of crank them out, and you don't have to worry about anything taking up your time. So that, for me, would be my compositional shape. Now, a different way, let me give you one more version. I got to be careful here because I'm sure these are really tiny. One more version would be, I'm just looking at this, just the ground, no tree. I could just kind of think of this, of my ground as the compositional shape in a middle tone, and then my tree would be another shape layered on top of that, and my tree would be really dark. So I wish that there were these things that I can show you guys to make this really simple. But unfortunately, it's not really simple. You kind of just have to think a little bit more in terms of shape, a little bit more in terms of light and shade. And the other thing is, why is the compositional shape there in the first place? The compositional shape is there in the first place to pop your main character. And you can also think about your compositional shape as just being a series of a big light versus a big shadow. So this line here of the tree trunk, that is going to be what the pangolin is going to overlap. So we have this strong, powerful diagonal of the tree trunk, and then we have this pangolin overlapping that. And that is the most important thing in the whole composition. Okay, so let's back up now. Hold on. All right, one more. Let's see if we can't put this thing together now. And, you know, it's funny, the one that I did below here, I like that one the most. So I'm just going to kind of follow through with that. So our ground is going to be the middle tone. So let's start with that now. So I'm going to get a bit of a bigger brush so we can get this done a little bit quicker for you. So I'm going to think about my ground as being the middle tone, because I think what confuses people, my students, is I say do the compositional shape, but you know I don't really say do the compositional shape with three values. Like I don't think I explain that enough. So it's a little dark. Let me start over with this. I'm sorry. I got to be a little bit more dainty. A little bit more dainty. Let's lower the opacity even more. So the key with this is building up slowly. Okay, so that's our ground, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate the roots of the tree into our ground. So that is this shape. I'm just thinking about my tone. Okay? Shape number one. And we could leave it at that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to push this. I'm really going to push the shadow side of the cylinder of that tree. So in essence, this is almost the first one top here. So I could push that foliage. I can push the tree. Doesn't mean I have to go black with the tree. It just means that it has to be more of a shape. And as soon as I do that, the tree pops a little bit more. I actually like the tree being a little bit lighter. So now let's just very lightly and gingerly, let's see if we can see what it's going to look like with the foliage up top. And then maybe we can even change the compositional shape as we're working on this, because you know you see things differently as you work on it a little bit more. And I'm going to have this foliage of the tree, the leaves, kind of mimic the ground a little bit. Okay, so I'm just stepping back and I'm looking at this. I'm going to see what happens when I go darker with the ground. I think I like that better. Okay, so now I'm going to even lessen the opacity more. I'm going to do my sky slash midground. Let's just block that in. Let's get rid of our light. If it doesn't seem like I'm doing anything, I'm just have the opacity really low. I'm just trying to build up. The beauty of the opacity is it prevents you from being heavy-handed. Okay, you have no choice in this Photoshop if you use the opacity tool the right way when you're working with your brush. Okay, so now this has to get darker because I'm going to incorporate moonlight in this scene. So now we've got our tree. Now let's work on the pangolin a little bit, and let's make the pangolin really pop. And I really want the pangolin's snout, its nose or mouth, however you want to call it. The first thing I see, Christine has a line that separates the light from the dark, actually, and she has the little baby on the tail. And I'm going to do the accent where the pangolin is touching the tree. I might, for the sake of time, even eliminate the little baby on the back just because it's going to take me too long and you guys could, I'm going to simplify its details. Let's just say that. Okay, so now I've outlined the pangolin. So let's get in its side plane shadow shape. Now it's decision time. What's going to be darker? Is the tree or the pangolin going to be darker? I'm going to go with the pangolin. Okay, so right away, the pangolin, I mean, I'm really not going too crazy with this in terms of edges and all that, but right away the pangolin pops and you see the pangolin first. So now what we have to do is just make this a little bit more interesting and add a moonlight. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's pick some white. Okay, and let's go to lighten. So I'm going to keep my moon low. So I'm using a really low opacity. I'm using light, and I'm going to pop some of this negative space because we want that moonlight to be peering through the trees. So you build this up slowly. Don't just want to put a blob of light right in the middle of your scene. So now I can come into the center. So now I'm going to take some of this moonlight. This, of course, I'd have to work on a little bit more detail than that. Let me go back. I don't like that shape. A little smaller with the brush. Okay, much better. So now let's just pop the light on the pangolin's body and on the baby, coming from the moon and on the tail. All the top plane, so to speak, even though the baby's more of a front plane. So now that really pops. Now, if we want to make the pangolin pop even more, we could do a very light tone in the sky here. Let me just make this really light. One moment. So I'm going to go just shade in this sky. A little bit more. A little bit darker than the tree. I gotta go a little bit more powerful with this. This could even be a whole nother layer of leaves back there. just kind of blocking in right now. So now that pangolin pops out. So if we want, I think I'm going to just, I'm leaning back from it. I'm not digging the tree trunk area, so this needs to be darker. Again, this is not for detail. I'm just trying to think about this compositional shape thing. And let's go even a little bit more powerful now. We can have a little bit of a model and factor effect on the tree trunk. I'm going to leave this light here, even though it shouldn't be there. Sometimes you just have to cheat with this stuff. Make that a little crisper. Pangolin needs the most work. Okay, so now we can just pop some other goodies. Now what's really cool, what you want to do, let me just work a little bit more on some leaves. I'm just kind of keeping the pen tool down on the screen. I'm not in love with the moon area. Would have to work on that a little bit more. But what I'm trying to get for you guys here is that I'm dealing with shapes, okay? It's not line. So, you know, it's popping so much better. And I think what we're missing here is we're just missing a big branch that gravity's going to kind of pull down. I can work on this forever and just really make it look like a real cool illustration. It already is a really cool illustration, but in terms of full black and white study. So what I usually tell my students to do in class, what makes for a real powerful image, give your images a nice strong border. Good habit to get into when you're working on your thumbnails. So yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, what's lacking in this piece is texture, and that's what's killing me a little bit. Like I really want to see a tad more texture, which I'm trying to do very simply but effectively here. But the most important thing is that you're looking at the pangolin. And what is the pangolin doing? It's cropping the compositional shape. Now, I did change some things from this. Look how dark this is. Look how dark that is. I changed it because you got to have some flexibility when you do this type of artwork. If I were to make this dark, then the pangolin would have to be lighter. So basically what I did there was I did a reverse gradation. Okay, so you have to be flexible with yourself, and you have to be willing to change things and let things kind of just flow out of you sometimes. But the most important thing is that you have some kind of idea where the shape is going to be in your scene. Okay, like I said, the thing that I like the least is the moonlight. But now if we want to take it to the next level and we wanted just to add another layer, we can go play a little bit more with the midground. Let me get a bigger brush. I wanted to do one more for you. Yeah, so our midground could be like a whole other layer of land back there. And you can play with that as much as you want. So now it's not so flat. Okay, and you can play with like little shapes down over here. I mean, last thing I'm going to do, let me just put in a little bit extra. You can have the moonlight actually down here, hit in the ground and kind of feathering off. Maybe there's like some like little flower type shapes down here on the ground, and that just kind of makes the image shimmer a little bit. I can keep going nuts with this. All right, so let's leave it at that. But now I want to just show you one more quick one. Here we have the pangolin that is kind of, we're looking downward, but I'm going to just really be totally obnoxious with this compositional shape. So this one now would be, let me just go a little bit more crazy with the opacity. We have normal, so here's our scene, looking down. For me, my compositional shape would be upside down triangle. Okay, and I would really, Christine's kind of closing at the tail. So all these leaves, all this foliage up here, where the pangolin is trying to get to eat the ants that are on these leaves, they would all be pretty dark. And my pangolin would be, hold on, I would do the reverse gradation. I would keep the pangolin's head pretty light, and I'd do the tail pretty dark. So now I have total reverse gradation. My leaves up top over there would be pretty dark too, and then if I wanted to, I'd make this ground over here round. Okay, let me just get a smaller brush. I'm almost done with this tutorial. 1 or 2 more minutes. So basically my tree would really taper. Really got to try to get this thing tapering. Okay, so for this one, I'm making a mess of it, but I think you guys get the idea. At least I hope you get the idea. For this one, I'd have 2 compositional shapes. The first one would house the dark leaves and the pangolin. I'm going to confuse you guys, but I'm not here to candy coat this compositional shape thing. The compositional shape thing, it's confusing because sometimes it's about dark and light, and sometimes it's just about stuff. Okay, so this would be a compositional shape, not only housing the dark leaves, but housing the pangolin, coming down to the pangolin's tail down here, and then I'd have my ground, which would be a round circular type shape, which would be the leaves casting shadow on the ground. So that would be like my compositional shape. Now, within that, okay, of course, you have your tree trunk tapering down, you have your pangolin, you have that branch over there, but basically I'm really playing with this shape of the composition, okay? So I hope that you got something from this. The compositional shapes are very confusing, but let's simplify it for you in a sentence. Don't do your sketches light and airy. Try to use shapes. Using shapes with at least 2 values will avoid the light and airy quality, and the light and airy quality sometimes equals a weak image because there's nothing to really cling on to. I mean, I really like the sketch over here to the left. This one has some definitive light and shade. This one has some definitive light and shade. I'm not in love with what I did. I even really love this one as well. This one has some good light and shade to it as well. And Christine's got the right idea with that sketch. Okay, I would like to work on that, but this video is getting long, and thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing, Christine.